Autumn, 1943. On a muddy, snow-covered runway in southern England, a young pilot of the United States Army Air Forces stepped out of the cockpit of the aircraft he had just landed, its nose still smoking, its engine burning hot, its frame trembling like a beast that had barely survived a fierce battle. He ran a gloved hand over the cold steel and exhaled softly. "She sure is one stubborn lady." That aircraft was the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, and at that time, it was considered the biggest disappointment of the U.S. Air Force. From the very beginning, the P-47 made European pilots uneasy. It was huge, almost 8 tons, and it guzzled fuel like a mechanical monster. While the British celebrated their sleek, agile Spitfires, the Thunderbolt looked like a flying brick, slow, heavy, and awkward. Some pilots even joked, "If you want a P-47 to take off faster, just push it off a cliff. Its own weight will do the rest." But beneath that clumsy armor lay something extraordinary. The P-47's fuselage was wrapped in thick steel plating around the cockpit, thicker than that of many light tanks of its time. Its Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine, the most powerful piston engine ever built in America, could unleash over 2.000 horsepower. At full throttle, it roared like a thunderstorm tearing across the sky. Yet, during its first year, almost no one believed in it. The P-47 couldn't climb as fast as the Spitfire, wasn't as agile as Germany's Bf 109, and its short range made it useless for escorting bombers deep into German territory. The result was disastrous. In 1943, without proper escort, waves of American B-17 Flying Fortresses flew into Germany only to be shredded by the Luftwaffe. Fighter pilots could only watch from afar as trails of black smoke marked the end of another bomber formation. At the headquarters of the 8th Air Force in England, frustration grew. It's too heavy to be a fighter, too slow to catch a Messerschmitt, and too thirsty to go the distance. One officer even proposed canceling the P-47 entirely to focus on the new P-51 Mustang project. But at the Republic Aviation plant in Farmingdale, New York, one man refused to give up. His name was Alexander Kartveli, a Georgian-born engineer who had once seen his homeland fall to German invasion and swore he would design a weapon strong enough to crush fascism. Kartveli didn't build the P-47 for speed, he built it to survive. He believed air combat would evolve into a storm of flak and bullets where only those who could endure would prevail. "We don't need a bird," he told his colleagues, "we need a Thunderbolt." And by the time America realized what he meant, the air war had changed. By late 1943, the P-47 was upgraded with drop tanks, extending its range deep into German skies. Pilots learned to harness its massive weight and blistering dive speed. Once a P-47 began its dive, nothing could catch it. From 26.000 feet, it plunged like a blazing meteor, its 6.50 cal Browning guns spitting hundreds of rounds per second, obliterating anything in sight. Pilots began calling it Jug, short for Juggernaut, a name that began as a joke but became a badge of pride. One pilot recalled, "When I got hit and smoke filled the cockpit, I thought I was done for, but the Jug kept flying, even with one wing torn open. I landed her, and I knew, I wasn't flying a plane, I was flying a fortress." Mission after mission, the P-47 earned respect. Over France and Holland, it destroyed hundreds of German fighters and shredded tanks, convoys, bridges, and railroads of the Wehrmacht. Its thick armor let it punch through anti-aircraft fire where Spitfires or Mustangs would have shattered. The Americans called those missions thunder runs, the storm strikes. From dawn till dusk, P-47s bearing the White Star dove from the clouds, raining destruction on German roads and supply lines. By the end of 1943, the once rejected Thunderbolt had become the backbone of American air power in Europe. The skies were theirs. But that was only the beginning. Because when America prepared to invade Normandy, the P-47 was about to take on its greatest role, not just as an escort fighter, but as a weapon of vengeance from the sky. Summer, 1944. Above the English Channel, engines thundered. Thousands of Allied aircraft assembled across southern England, ready for Operation Overlord, the largest invasion in history. On a dew-soaked airfield near Dover, the pilots of the 56th Fighter Group checked every bullet, every drop tank, They knew what awaited them across the sea, and that tomorrow they would be the first shield and the first spear of the Allied forces. "We're not just escorting anymore," one said, "we're hunting everything with a black cross." From that moment, the P-47's purpose changed. No longer simply guarding B-17s, it cleared the skies, tore apart tanks, convoys, artillery, railways, bridges, anything that could slow the Allied advance. It became the deadliest ground attack aircraft of World War II. When the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, the skies above roared like a tempest. P-47s dove in groups of 4, almost vertically, unleashing torrents of fire. From 13,000 feet, 6 Browning guns blazed, white-hot tracers slicing through clouds and smoke, tearing into German armor and fortifications. The growl of the R-2800 engine merged with the thunder of explosions, creating a symphony of steel and fury. Pilot William Bill Dunham recalled, "When you dove and saw a Panzer shrink beneath you, then burst into flames, you knew you were carrying all the power of America on your wings." The P-47 feared no flak. Its cockpit armor could withstand 20mm shells, its wings and fuselage, reinforced with thick alloy, could bring a damaged bird home full of holes. Some landed with half a wing burned off, and still lived. It earned the nickname, the Flying Tank. Alongside the Mustang and Typhoon, it crippled the Nazi war machine at Normandy. From that summer on, the air war in Europe turned decisively in the Allies' favor. P-47s not only bombed but hunted the Luftwaffe on the ground, destroying aircraft on their runways. Their relentless assaults from Caen to Falaise, across France to the Ardennes, shattered Germany's last hopes. Snow fell thick across the Belgian forests. The sky was dark and heavy, fog choking every valley. Then, without warning, Germany struck back. Operation Watch on the Rhine, the Battle of the Bulge, was Hitler's final gamble. Hundreds of Tiger and Panther tanks poured from the Ardennes, crushing American lines. The Allies were trapped, their supply routes cut off. For 2 weeks, the weather grounded the P-47s, and U.S. troops suffered horribly. But on December 23, the clouds broke. The sun pierced through. And from airfields across England and France, the Thunderbolts roared back to life. Their engines thundered across the snowbound forests, a sound the Germans would remember as Judgment Day. Wave after wave, they dove on German convoys, unleashing rockets, bombs, and gunfire. Panzer columns exploded, supply lines disintegrated. Film reels from that day show more than 600 vehicles destroyed in a single day. A soldier at Bastogne recalled, "When that thunder came, we knew we weren't dead yet. The Thunderbolts were back, and the battlefield was ours again." The Battle of the Bulge ended with over 80,000 German casualties or prisoners. And when the P-47s returned to base, their wings still streaked with smoke and snow, every pilot knew, without them, the Ardennes might have been the Allies' grave. After that battle, crews painted new words on their aircraft. "Under these wings lies the wrath of freedom." From a mockery, Jug had become a legend. American, British, Polish, French, even Belgian pilots flew it, with one shared belief: "This machine can save my life, and I'll use it to save others." Spring, 1945. The skies over Europe were quiet now. No more Luftwaffe, no more burning B-17s, only the low, thunderous hum of P-47 Thunderbolts patrolling the ruins of a dying Reich. Below, towns lay in ashes, German convoys burned on every road, testament to the power the Thunderbolt had unleashed. In those final days, the P-47s flew low, very low. With no air opposition left, their mission was to cut off every retreat, every supply line. Gunfire echoed through the clouds, brass casings raining down like golden hail. Panther tanks erupted in flame as the war itself began to die. One pilot, Raymond Knight, commander of the 350th Squadron, received orders to attack an airfield near Po Valley, Italy. He knew it was heavily defended, yet he flew straight into the storm, destroying hangars and runways before his plane was hit. His P-47 crashed into the mountains. After the war, Knight was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for facing death so that others might live. The final report of the 12th Air Force wrote only one line. Knight and his Thunderbolt completed the mission. The flying tank and the human spirit. A total of 15.683 P-47 Thunderbolts were built, more than any other American fighter of the war. It wasn't the fastest, nor the highest flying, but it was the toughest. When Mustangs or Spitfires fell to 20mm shells, the P-47 could still limp home, trailing black smoke yet roaring defiantly. Some came back riddled with 300 bullet holes, half a wing missing, and still landed. The best way to kill a Thunderbolt, they joked, is to wait for it to run out of gas. That 200-pound armor plate around the cockpit, once called unnecessary weight, saved hundreds of lives. Many veterans later said they owed their survival to that steel. One old pilot, sitting on his porch years later, looked at the sky and told his grandson, "When you fly a P-47, you know that no matter what hell lies ahead, you've got a chance to come home." May 8, 1945 victory in Europe. Church bells rang across London, Paris, and New York. But in the quiet airfields of France and England, P-47 pilots simply sat by the runway. No more missions, no more targets. They looked at one another and smiled, saying nothing, because what needed to be said had already been written across the skies of Normandy and Ardennes. After the war, thousands of Thunderbolts were returned to the US or handed to allies like France, Brazil, and Mexico. Some flew in Korea, others in training, until they were finally replaced by jets. But in the hearts of those who flew her, the Thunderbolt never disappeared. Today, at airshows in Oshkosh or Duxford, people still hear that familiar sound, the deep, rumbling growl of the old R2800 engine. When that silver bird rises into the blue, crowds fall silent, not just for the sound, but for the memory of a time when the world placed its hope on wings of steel. At one memorial, a veteran once said, "We weren't heroes, we just believed in the machine we flew, and that machine never betrayed us." The legacy of the Thunderbolt. The P-47 left the world with a lesson. Strength isn't about beauty, it's about endurance. It wasn't built to look graceful, but to survive, to fight, to finish the mission when everything else had failed. Decades later, when engineers designed the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, they named it in honor of its ancestor. Like the P-47, the A-10 was built to take hits, protect its pilot, and bring them home. On its fuselage, a small inscription reads, "Thunderbolt II, heir of the storm." And so, more than 80 years after the war, whenever that old Pratt & Whitney engine roars again, people still recognize it instantly. The Thunderbolt has returned, not to wage war, but to remind the world that amid the storms of history, there have always been wings brave enough to fly through them, carrying both the strength and the courage of humanity. High above, it still growls as it once did. The echo of thunder, and the soul of those who never stopped believing.